Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of In the Umpires Clubhouse, and we've got a special one today. Hence the title, In the Umpires Clubhouse. We have a gentleman here who is a former Major League umpire who knows Dale and Jimmy real well, Bob Davidson. He's done three All-Star games, three League Championship Series, the 92 World Series, Division Series, World Baseball Classics, and he's seen and done it all. And with that, Balking Bob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob.
Right on the shoot.
Yeah, I was going to say that possibly our listeners and viewers may not understand Bob Davidson, but if you say Balking Bob, they're very well aware.
Now that you said my name, I think everybody just left the podcast.
Okay. Well, the elephant in the room. Before we do any further, tell us the story of how you got the nickname.
Well, that was a present from Atlanta Braves announcer Skip Carey. When in 1982, it was my first year in the National League, and I was kind of a rover. I bounced around from crew to crew to crew, and there was a segment there in the summer where I had the Braves like 10, 11 straight days, and there was some balks, but I didn't call them all. I was with Doug Harvey, called one. I think the guy must have broke his leg. But anyway, Doug Harvey must have called one. Bruce Strumming. So then he started calling me, Balking Bob, and then it just kind of stuck like mud.
Well, for years, I thought my name was Frickin' because every time I walk in the field, they'd say Frickin' Scott.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure what my name was.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing. Not only Balking Bob, but the baseball umpire world knows Bob Davidson as B.O.B.
Right.
Now, I've always wondered about this, and ever since the day I met Bob Davidson in spring training down in Arizona, and why did the B.O.B. what connotation does that hold? How'd that ever happen? I've never heard that story.
Well, the National League, as you know, Jimmy, not very intelligent umpires. And so they just kind of spelled it. No, I got that name from Doug Harvey because when I first got to the National League, I worked a lot with Doug, and he thought B.O.B. was the name of the orangutan at the San Diego Zoo at the time. And
there we go.
It's true. And so he thought that I kind of moved around like the orangutan, and the orangutan's name was B.O.B. So henceforth, I've been B.O.B. for the last 40 some years.
Yeah, I've seen orangutans. They move much smoother than you do, Bob.
Probably do. Yeah.
Leave it to God, Doug Harvey, to come up with something like that.
Well, he invented the animals. What the hell?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've known Bob for almost 40 some years, and I never knew that. But you're actually named after an orangutan
at the San Diego Zoo in the early '80s. That was.
And when I think of orangutan, I just think of Clint Eastwood. So
that's Turn Clyde.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks to Doug Harvey, I got that name, and thanks to Skip Carey, I got the other name, and some other names I can't really say that I've gotten.
I think Jimmy and Dale have those names too.
Well, we can't say them.
Yeah, they're in the appendix of Dale's book. So
yeah.
I got to tell another story about Bob. When Bob and we used to stay down in Scottsdale, Arizona. We stayed out at a place out in North Scottsdale, and my son Jimmy was a big kid. He was about 7 years old, but he was huge. He stood about 5'8" at that time.
He was Dale's height.
So we're walking by the pool. We're actually going to go out to dinner. And as we're walking by the pool, Bob comes up. We're just kind of standing there just talking and such. And all of a sudden, Bob just puts his knee in Jimmy's butt, and he just gives him a little heave-ho, and Jimmy goes right in the pool. Right in the pool. I think it was St. Patrick's Day, actually, to tell you the absolute truth. And so I'm standing there watching, and there's people in the pool. And finally I said, can somebody grab that kid because he can't swim? And they fished Jimmy out, and Okay, now we got to spend another 45 minutes drying him off and redressing him and everything like that. And I just went, thanks, Bob. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was one of my better moments. So
Bob had a tendency when he was on a crew to like on, I think it was on, usually on getaway days, he would be, he's a giver, and so he would like to give somebody in their equipment trunk, I don't know, a ham sandwich or whatever random thing that he could stuff in there that they wouldn't see. And so the trunk will go to the next city, and they'll or the best one is when they're going on vacation. So it's a week, growing into this trunk, whatever the hell he put in there. And then they get to the next place, and all of a sudden the guy will go, open it up. Or did you also put stuff in ball bags? Tell us a little bit about your little pranks that you did.
my best pranks, Dale, are in the shower. I would.
Well, if I said that,
wait a
HR
minute.
would come calling, so I can't say that. All right?
Hold on a second.
No, it's clean. You know how they have the towels lined up, and so if somebody was in the shower, I always took the next towel and I put shave cream in it and then folded it back up. And I'll never forget John Hirschbeck one day in Pittsburgh was coming out of the shower, and I had doctored the towel, and John took the towel and he was drying himself off, so he thought, and he comes walking out into the dressing area, and everyone's laughing at him, and he looks and he goes, "Bob, you bleep, 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 bleep." And so, yeah, that was, hey, look who's here.
Well, we have a black cat going in front. What kind of a bad superstitious stuff is that going on now? I've heard of ladders, but I didn't know.
This
You're
is my
getting
baby Jaguar.
locked.
That's my baby Jaguar.
There you go. The one famously, actually, I was working with Bob at the time, and I forget where we were at or where we were going, but it was just like Dale said, it was getaway day, and you never leave Bob alone with the umpire trunks on getaway day. You just don't do that. But I'm sitting there and I see him go over to Doug Eddings' bag. And you want to take it from there, Bob, if you remember that one?
Well, I can't remember what delicacy I put in his bag.
Well, this is the one where you disassembled his face mask.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my.
So anyway, Bob goes into Doug Eddings' trunk, and the straps to our face mask, the umpire's face mask, Bob unhooked them. And so Doug, not even thinking about it, we go out to the plate and everything like that, and Dougie's getting ready, and during warm-ups, Dougie goes like this, and the whole mask just came straight down, and he just looked at Bob Davidson down at first base. And so he had to stand there and redo his face mask right there. And Dougie was pretty good sport about it until after the game, and then he was pissed. So but I'll tell you what, that was hilarious though.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of thought.
I got Fielding Culbreth used to always, whenever he can get a chance at my bag, he did. And so our bags got there a day early, and his crew was in Seattle, I remember. And he opened my bag and took my base shoes and tied them backwards, so to speak, where you, anyway, and as soon as I got next day, we get there and I'm putting on my base shoes and I see the laces are all screwed up. And I said, "Who was here yesterday?" And Matt says, "Cubby."
Enough said.
Yeah.
Well, at least with the shaving cream on the towel thing, at least you didn't do Ben Gay or something like that.
Right.
Because that would have,
yeah,
there would have been some screaming there.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
You guys should have hooked him up with Johnstone and Royce. Oh my God, those guys were the prank, or Blyleven, and got him with those guys, because they could have had some great pranks.
They always thought it was a prank when I had the plate. I don't know what that was all about.
But seeing Bob's Puma walk across, his cat and everything like that, we won't give out his address, but Bob lives in Colorado, and it's considered, one of the wild states, I guess is the best way to put it. And
Animal friendly.
I talked to Bob. I don't know. We probably talk once a week, twice a week, or whatever.
Yeah.
We talk a lot. And so anyway, have been talking to Bob forever, and Bob always gives me a story like, okay, we found a rattlesnake in our garage. There was a bobcat in our yard laying down in the front yard. And so one day, Denise, his wife, sends me a video of Bob out in the backyard with his dog Fendi, and what's the other dog's name? Louie.
Louis. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Fendi and Louie are going nuts. They're just barking like crazy. Now, is this from the Ring camera or is this from Denise's camera?
I think it was from the Ring camera.
Yeah, I think it was, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you see Bob out there and he's going, Fendi, shut up. And all of a sudden Bob turns around and makes a beeline back to the house. And everybody, you're sitting there it's dark, it's night. And all of a sudden you're kind of looking and stuff. And all of a sudden this freaking black bear is walking along the fence edge of his house, and Fendi's barking like she's going to take on this damn dog. And so obviously the caption was, Bob leaves the dogs out in the backyard, but saves his own ass.
Yeah, that was bad of me. There's no question. Yeah. I should have stayed there and grabbed the dogs first. Yeah.
Well, Bob, I mean, it's, he was a nice dog.
Yeah.
Was.
They survived. Yeah.
Oh, but he's had mountain lions. He's had, literally, they have another video where there was a bear on their back porch, on their back deck, knocking the deck furniture all over the place and everything like this. So I lovingly say to Bob, it's time to move. It's time to move into Denver. So,
yeah, I was going to open the hot tub for him, but he wasn't that interested.
Yeah, they'll shed and clog the filter.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. No.
Dale's got a hot tub in Palm Springs. I mean, he didn't have to eat his pool. It's a natural hot tub right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, everything's very natural. By the way, this is completely off random, but I just got a text from Mike. We officially have sold our house. He signed off the papers. Everything is done.
Oh, good.
Congratulations.
So that's good.
What, 2.2 mil, or what'd you get for
it? That's what I was asking for. I didn't get that. It got substantially lower than that. Hey, Bob, all serious, be serious for a second. Good luck with that. No, but you have an interesting story that I think a lot of people probably don't know, and was when we had our issues in the union in '99 and resigned. You were one of the guys that lost your job, but you came back and you had to go through the steps to get back. And at that time you were what, a 15 to 18 year veteran or something?
18. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just, just for people that don't know the story or just don't realize, I think there were 3 of you that went back, that lost their jobs and went back through the minor league system to get back to the big leagues. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Correct. Eddie Hickox, Tom Hallion, and myself were the 3 guys, and I was struggling with everything. I got fired I had a job at KOA, and I got fired because I sucked, and and I was refereeing a lot of basketball, men's rec league, and I was doing high school baseball and some small college baseball. So anyway, I'm home one day and the phone rings, and it's Ralph Nelson, who was in charge at the time. And he said, he asked me, he said, well, what are you doing? And I told him, well, I'm doing this. I'm not doing anything very well. And he said, oh, everything's the same. I said, yeah. But anyway, he said, what would you think about if you went back to the advanced camp of umpire school? And, because the umpire's contract comes up in 2 years. And then I think you would probably be one of the first guys to get reinstated. And I said, yeah, I would definitely do that.
Now, to put a little context here, you lost your job in '99. This was what, like 2002, something like that?
Yes, it was 2002.
Yeah.
And so late January of 2002, and I called Tom Hallion as soon as Nelson hung up with me, and I told him, and Tommy said, "Well, I don't know if I want to do that." And so I called Jerry Crawford, because I knew Crawford and Hallion were very close. And I said, "Jerry, this is what they've offered, and Tommy could do this." And and Jerry said, "I'll talk to Hallion." And Crawford convinced him into doing it. So Hallion and I were roommates in Cocoa Beach for the advanced camp that year, and I had an ejection. I said,
And
hey,
that was just still in the barracks.
everything's normal. But so Tommy and I, Eddie Hickox had done it the year before, and nobody knew about it. I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, because I certainly would have done that. And so Tommy and I went, and we both Tommy went to the New York Penn League, I believe, and I went to the Northwest League. And so for the 2003 season. So I had to go Northwest League for 2003. And I went, and they put me in the Midwest League for 2004. And then I got a chance to come back in 2005, as did Tom Hallion and Hickox, when the umpires put us in their agreement. And so we were lucky. We were lucky.
Yeah, well, and that was, I mean, to realize that, an 18-year major league veteran who's now out of a job for like 3 years because of the politics and the bullshit of what happened in the implosion, and then and like you said, you're refereeing basketball, you're working at a radio station. I think were you working the graveyard shift, sports talk? Is that?
I did that. I did the early morning sports news. But to be honest with you, I was pretty much horse manure, and so that's why I wasn't. I was, I was there a couple of years. I guess I was pretty lucky I got that.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is for you and Hallion, I mean, to go back to an umpire school week, to go back to short A baseball in the Northwest League, and then A ball, it's humbling, right? I mean, but it was also a path to get you back to where you should have been.
Yeah.
And you had the enough foresight to say, listen, this may be a little humbling, but this is my path forward. I can do this, and let's just get it done. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so before I went back to the advanced, the camp there in Cocoa, I was packing my bag, and anyway, Denise put a huge bottle of Jack Daniels in there for me. I was rooming with, I was going to room with Hallion. And but I didn't know it until I got to the hotel, and Tommy and I are sharing a room, and I'm unpacking, and I asked, "What is this heavy thing?" And it was one of the big bottles of Jack.
Well, I mean, it's a whole week's school. At least your wife, Denise, at least she puts nice things in a bag instead of you throwing ham sandwiches or something.
Yeah, it was nice, and we polished that off before we departed. So yeah, that's
and,
sure.
And just to qualify this, you got to remember this was the low minor leagues. This isn't
low.
This is the car driving every
this is two-man crews.
Two-man crew, and plate every other day.
Yeah.
Which Bob had already done in the prior life before that. We all did that, and
we were also in our 20s when we did it.
Exactly. And I'll be the first one to say that the punishment didn't fit the crime. I'm going to tell you that right now. This was probably one of the most unfair things that probably ever happened to anybody in the game of umpiring, and had to do what those guys did. And like Dale said, it was really mostly over politics, and it probably should have been avoided, but unfortunately it wasn't.
Well, they were making an example out of me and Hallion and Hickox, and a lot of very good umpires lost their jobs. And,
yes,
no question about it. And we were lucky. I was lucky to get back. I ended up with 30 years in. I got another 12. And but a funny story, in the Northwest League, I was working with I'm 53 years old at the time, I'm working with a 21-year-old kid named Scott Jared. And so anyway, with a month to go in the season, he gets promoted to the Midwest League. And Mark Ripperger was coming from the Arizona Instructional League or whatever that's called. And he was going to join me. So I worked the plate the night before. And so I went, Scott Jared was the driver. And so I didn't have a car. So I called the league president. And I said, well, I'm going to have to rent a car on you because Jared took the car and went to the Midwest League. He says, yeah, go ahead and rent a car there. We were in Spokane, Washington. And so I got the car and I went to the airport and picked up Ripperger. Nice kid and a good umpire. I mean, he's really turned into, in my opinion, a very good umpire. And thanks to my tutelage. But anyway, so I pick up Ripperger, take him to the hotel, and he, and I said, yeah, you're going to be on the bases. And he goes, oh, okay. And so I worked the plate again. For me, working that league was like slow pitch. I mean, it was just,
right.
It's just we're young pitchers that maybe threw 80 miles an hour at best. And so anyway, the first play of the game, Rip at first base. I mean, I know we've all been here. The guy is safer out by 3 feet, and he calls it the other way. So I said to myself, oh boy, welcome to the Northwest League. And anyway, he the last month with him, he had a good time, and a lot of laughs. He's a good kid and good umpire too. So
well,
I don't talk too much about working first base. So
yeah, well, Jimmy, you had a unique style.
But I'll tell you one thing though, Jim. The way you handled that disaster, I'll tell you what, really, you gained a lot of respect from everyone.
Absolutely.
And
let's get back to Bob Davidson. Let's get back to Bob Davidson.
Well, you're talking about Mike Ripperger, your tutelage, and he's an outstanding umpire in the big leagues and has been for a few years now, but he leads the league in calling balks. And I think that is something that
Bach and Mark. Yes. Bach and Mark. Yeah.
It's in the gene pool.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Bob. You've got a name recognition. You mentioned Balking Bob to baseball. Everybody knows who you are, so you got to look at it. Okay, I like that.
When Bob did come back, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Bob, but I think we worked your first year. We worked a couple times your first year back. I think I came over and you came to our crew or whatever.
Yeah, it was you and Laz and Dana.
Yeah, Dana was gone though. Dana, that's why
I was taking Dana's spot.
You were taking Dana's spot.
Yeah, so you and Laz, and I can't remember who else.
Yeah, we were. I think it was Jim Reynolds, actually. Now that I think about it, maybe. But anyway, we're in Boston, and Dale, I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you, but it's only happened once in my career. And so Bob and I are working side by side. I'm at second, Bob's at third. And Bob gets back to the big leagues, and so it's in American League City. He's really never really worked in Fenway Park or anything like that. And
first time
ever. And there's certain ground rules out on the Green Monster and everything. And there's certain ground rules that are in place in Boston. I don't even know who it is, but see, it was Toronto that was playing.
Yeah, John Gibbons was the man.
John Gibbons, and so. Toronto hits the ball off the wall at the top of the wall. Okay. The ball eventually comes back out on the field, and Bob going out on the play, Bob puts his hand up and he calls it a home run. Mm-hmm. It's his first wall shot in Boston.
First inning or second inning or something.
Yeah. So I'm standing there and I didn't have to move at all. And so I'm watching, and I have a pretty good feeling where the ball hit. Now this is before we had replay. And so John, I motioned Bob over and I said, Bob, did you get a really good look at that? You know where it hit? He goes, yeah, I know exactly where it hit. And I said, okay, that piece of metal at the top of the wall is not a home run. And he says, oh, that's right, like that. And I said, okay, no big deal. I said, we're just gonna, we're gonna put him at second base where he ended up and stuff. Well, John Gibbons takes exception to this, the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. And what I'm getting to is, I've never had a double ejection. Meaning, when John Gibbons comes out, he starts ranting and raving and screaming, and all of a sudden, Buzz looks at me and he goes, "Jimmy, have you ejected him yet?" And I said, "No, but I'm getting ready to." And Bob and I, at the exact same moment, boom, we both get rid of him at the same time.
Yeah.
His hat comes off and everything like that. So anyway, we get back to the next day, and in my chair, there's a note from John Gibbons and says, "You guys were right, you assholes." I said, well, I guess that's a pretty good apology.
Yeah.
This is with umpires and Toronto managers, Dale. You know, with Cito, and you guys had problems with Gibbons. I mean, is it something in the Canadian water, or what's going on?
Gibbons. I mean, I had run-ins with him, but he wasn't a bad guy.
No.
I didn't think.
Not at all.
I mean, I remember one time he came out at Yankee Stadium, and he was arguing, but not really. And he goes, it just like took a left turn in the middle of it. He goes, "Look at us. We're out here at Yankee Stadium talking to each other. How stupid is that? Or how weird is that?" I'm going, "What?" And he's got this little smile on his face. When I had that cluster, that Game 5, Texas at Toronto Division Series game. And I'm telling him, this is what we did. This is what we're going to do. Blah, 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 blah. And he goes, well, I got to protest. I need to protest. I go, well, okay. What are you going to this is when we had protest. He said, I said, "What are you protesting?" He goes, "All of it. I protest all of it." I said, "Well, you kind of have to be a little more specific."
We were talking in past podcasts about
finally I just said, "John, this is what we're doing. We lodged the protest. Do you want to get run or do you want to stay?" Go, "I don't want to get run." I go, "Well, then go sit down because we're going."
We've talked in past podcasts, like Dale's had his run-ins with Cito and with like he's just talking about with John Gibbons. My guy was Doug Rader. I could do no right with Doug Rader. Who was your guy, Bob?
Well, I had about 14. My guy, without any question, was Tom Lasorda.
Tom Lasorda.
Yes. And Tom and I just couldn't get along at all. I remember in the 80s, the Dodgers were bad on this particular year, and he came out of I was working second, and I had a steal play that really wasn't close. I remember Steve Sachs put the tag on the guy, but he was clearly safe, and out come Lasorda. And I remember Sachs saying to me, "What the hell's he doing?" Anyway, Lasorda came out waving his arms, and he started talking about this restaurant. He said, I was with Terry Tata. "I want you and Tata. I want to set you guys up at this restaurant." And, nothing about the play. And then, and he's waving his arms. The fans are going nuts. There's a full house there like it usually was at Dodger Stadium. And I said, "Tommy, quick question. You want to go?" He says, "Yes." So I threw him out. And I've had a few other ones with Lasorda. The forfeited game with the baseballs coming on the field.
That's actually a classic.
I remember that classic. I remember that game, watching it. That was nuts.
Yeah,
that was nuts. And another one in Montreal with the mascot Yuppie jumping on the Dodger dugout. And that was a 21-inning game. That the star of that game was Greg Bonet. He had to play for 21 innings. And we had a 6:30 flight. We were going to the West Coast, and we got off the field like around 3 o'clock. We just went right to the hotel, got our bags, went right to the airport. But it was a long, miserable day. But that forfeited game, it was in 1995. Not that I remember, but I think August 10th. Anyway, I was at first base. Jimmy Quick was the chief, had the plate. and the late Larry Poncino at second, and Billy Hahn at third. And so it's like early in the game, third, fourth inning, and the Dodgers aren't happy with Quick's plate work. And so he threw out Eric Karros, and then it was giveaway day of baseballs, and they never did this again. They gave baseballs away before the game. now they'll do it after the game, but so they gave it away before the game. And I want to say, I'll bet you maybe 5,000 balls came flying out of the seats onto the field. And so we called timeout, and both teams went in the dugout, and they cleaned. It took them maybe 7 minutes to clean all the baseballs up, and then we go back to play again. And about 4 innings later, Quick calls Raul Mondesi out on strikes. Mondesi didn't like it. He got ejected. Out came Lasorda, and and the baseballs kept. I want to say maybe 10,000 baseballs came out this time. And you had to be, and somebody threw a bottle of Jack Daniels at John Mayberry in the outfield. And I mean, they were just throwing all the balls back on the field. And
you tell them that was Denise's bottle?
That might have been Denise's bottle, yeah. But Denise was in town that day.
Really?
With the kids, but she didn't go to the game. Yeah, she would have thrown a ball at me too, probably. But anyway, so then we took the players off the field again. Lasorda got ejected, and Mondesi got ejected, and now we're going to the ninth inning, and it's bottom of the ninth. St. Louis is ahead 2-1, and the first hitter, I can't remember who it was, but Quickie called him out on strikes, and he didn't like it, and out came a bunch of baseballs. They were throwing at Brian Jordan in the outfield, and Quickie yelled at me. He says, "B.O.B., wave it off. We're done." I said, "Okay." So boom, I waved the game off, and we left the field. And so anyway, after the game, Quickie was, he had it was a tough game and a lot of BS. And Quickie said to me, all the reporters were out in the hallway. This is when the dressing room was on the first base side of Dodger Stadium at the time. Our dressing room was, and so I went out in the hallway, and there had to be like 50 reporters there. And one reporter said to me, he said, Lasorda blames you for this, because he hated me. And I said, he blames me. I said, it's Lasorda's fault. He was out there waving his fat little arms, and it got all the fans fired up. Anyway, Leonard Coleman was the league president of the National League, and he was mad at me. And so anyway, we go back to the hotel, and Quick says, "Come on, we got to call Leonard Coleman." So I went to Quickie's room, and I got on the other phone, and I'll never forget this. Coleman answered the phone. "Hello?" And Quick says, "Hey, Mr. Coleman, Jim Quick, Bob Davidson here." "Oh, yeah, what's up?" "Well, we had a forfeit a game at Dodger Stadium." "You what?" And we explained what happened, and he said, "Well, okay, I'll be in touch with you guys tomorrow." And so the next day we went to San Francisco, and Candlestick Park. We'd come out in the right field corner, and the Giants were playing the Padres. And as we're walking onto the field, the four of us, both teams gave us a standing ovation. The Giants were clapping, and the Padres were clapping, and they're just happy the Dodgers lost. But yeah, Coleman got mad at me big time because I said that Lasorda was flapping his fat little arms. So.
Well, very descriptive, but true.
And that's why they don't do giveaways on stuff like that before games anymore, because that's exactly what used to happen. And also, like in Yankee Stadium, they used to give bat day. On bat day, they used to give bats away before the game, and we used to affectionately call it Weapon Day.
Yeah.
Well, that day in Dodger Stadium. if I'm not mistaken, they signed 3 people out of the stands with good arms.
Who'd have thought Bat Day in Yankee Stadium in the Bronx was not a good idea? I mean,
No, that was a terrible idea.
Well, they need to give it to them when they leave to get out of the Bronx. I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
all those letters,
on the subway.
to Dale Scott, please, Yankee fans.
well, this was a long time ago, and it's all different now.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Hey, do you guys remember your very first big league plate job? Maybe like in spring training?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Like it happened yesterday.
Well, me too. I remember I was working in Bradenton, Florida, the Pirates. And this is when Willie Stargell was playing. So back in, must have been 79-ish or 80-ish or something. So Willie Stargell is the third hitter for the Pirates. And the first pitch to him would have been low on a duck. I mean, it was just it was just a bad pitch. I called it a strike. And Stargell stepped out. He goes, "Young man, that is not a strike." And I, all right. I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't say anything, but the 2 pitches later, he hit it into the parking lot in right center field. And as soon as he swung and hit it, he dropped his bat and looked at me, and he's got a smile. He says, "Now that's a strike."
My first plate job in spring training actually was done by not a misunderstanding, but Paul Runge had hurt his leg. I was in Yuma, Arizona, and it was like my second day of spring training, and Paul Runge hurt his leg in a RV thing or ATV thing, and so he says, "Jimmy, you got the plate." And I said, "I'm American League," and he says, "It doesn't matter. You got the plate." I said, "Okay." So I was working with Fred Brocklander, Paul Runge, and me, and so I'm okay. I'm just a kid. I mean, literally, this is my first spring training, and so I go out there, and I'm doing not how we all know that you prepare and everything like that. So I go out there and I just do the best I can. I end up with a 2-hour and 15-minute game in spring training, but Bob Didier was the third base coach for the Oakland Athletics, and he was on me on every damn pitch. Every pitch I called, he said something from third base. And finally, I had enough, and I just raised my hands. I called time. I started walking down, and Paul Runge was the first base. He says, "Jimmy, I've got this." He walked across the infield, walked up to Bob Didier, and he told him unceremoniously, he ejects him and says, "You get your ass off this field. That kid's doing a hell of a job." And I just went, "Baby, I'm walking in it right now." But that was my first plate job in quote unquote the major leagues. And like you, I remember like it was yesterday.
You're up, Dale.
Yep, your turn.
The better story for me was my first play job in the big leagues. It was the Angels at Detroit, and I'd gone up, worked first base, and then it was a Saturday game of the week. It was Bob Costas and Tony Kubek on NBC. And I've got the plate.
Not Dizzy Dean?
What's that?
Not Dizzy Dean?
No. It was in color too. It was in color. And my ace, my starting ace for Detroit, Jack Morris, who for those who don't know, hates umpires
Significantly.
I mean, he doesn't even like a lot of his teammates. Jack had a tendency to his body language was not good to us or to a teammate if they missed a cutoff man or made an error. He pretty much let everybody know what he was thinking. Well, anyway, I don't know that. I'm going into this not knowing that, and I find out later. I'm with Dave Phillips and Tim Welke. I'm up for Vic Voltaggio, who had just gotten hurt for the first time that day, but I think he got hurt three or four more times that day. But they said, when he went down and we were doing the rotation, we thought, well, if we put Scotty on Saturday, that's Morris and typical Davies. Well, well, he needs to learn. So it's like, welcome to the main attraction. So anyway, we he's looking in on some. I'm nervous as heck. Of course, I don't know the Jack Morris story. I'm just nervous as heck. You got Sparky over here that with a young guy, it can be a real thrill. And Jack, of course, he's looking in on pitches and this and that. Wally Joyner was a rookie, and he hit a ton of home runs that year. He was like, and this was in like mid-May, and he jacked one in like the third inning or something. Well, anyway, the rains came. It started raining. We went off the field. It was not a complete game, and of course, we didn't have suspended games at that point for that time. And it was like in the fourth inning, the bottom of the fourth or whatever. And we ended up getting rained out. But I remember sitting in that little Tiger Stadium locker room, which was an afterthought. It was a manager's office, actually. It's supposed to be anyway, which is our room, very small. And Davey's out doing his Davey thing with the rain and all this stuff, and I'm just sitting there going, I just hope we get rained out. I'm done. I am so. I do. This guy on the hill, I don't know who the hell he is, but he's an asshole. And I can't imagine going. Well, as it turns out, we did get rained out, and I pardon me, that wasn't the game of the week. The day before was. This was Sunday. It was getaway, so we were done with them, and I moved on. And my first real, complete game play job was in Texas a few days later, and it went very smooth, thank God. But I'll never forget that. A lot of times umpires are saying, "I hope it rains," or let's just call it. Let's just go home or whatever. I was like, please keep raining, please keep raining, please keep raining, please keep raining. I just want to go out. And so that was my first taste of Jack Morris also, which, foreshadowed several other meetings with him throughout my career.
Every time I was lucky enough to go to the big leagues, it always happened. How guys always say it was always New York or Boston or whatever. And I don't know what league or what cities it was in the National League at that time, but ours was always, when you got called up, was New York, Boston, or Baltimore.
Oh.
Right.
In our league, it was plate games. Hey, Jimmy, you know what story I would like to hear? I think it's a great story. Is the one in Phoenix when you saved that lady's life, and then you went behind the plate and scored 100 but you didn't miss a pitch.
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky. So on both ends of it, and I'll just talk about the plate job, because the CPR is what it was, and that worked out really good. Everybody should know CPR. That's my public announcement, is everybody should know CPR anyway. So, but Bob's right. And Kay had told, I refused to not work. I refused. The crew didn't want me to work the plate. I just did CPR on a lady. Anyway, long story short, I went out and worked it. I don't even remember working the game, to be very honest with you. And the only thing I really particularly remember is Bill Cutler Jr. was my president's in the Coast League son that actually worked there, and he called me back with Roland Heeman, and they just wanted to let me know it was like the sixth inning. They just wanted me to know that actually Jane Powers had survived, and really that's the only thing I really remember about it. And I didn't even remember the game as much, and Kurt Gibson didn't even know what happened. He didn't even know, and he was screaming at me the whole game. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to score a pretty high score. And I've got a Shih Tzu that's barking. Let me go close the door real quick.
All right. And Dale, you're up next. I'm kind of running this iPad.
I see that.
Dale, there's one thing I got to tell you. Bob said, I can, which guy do you want to boot? I can come on here and take their place. So you can talk to him.
You might get booted, Bob, I think. I like the story I'd like Dale to tell was when he ejected, I think it was Billy Martin's last ejection as a period.
Yeah. It was my third year, 1988, Memorial Day, Yankees at Oakland, a 5:00 start. That was when ABC had Monday Night Football. They also had Monday Night Baseball. And so we started at 5. And I had first base. Richie Garcia, the chief, was behind the plate. And we had Rick Reed at second, and John Hirschbeck at third. And in the bottom of the third inning, they water down the dirt before the game to keep the dust down and whatever. Well, we had quick couple innings. Bottom of the third, leadoff hitter for Oakland was who ended up being rookie of the year. Walt Weiss was rookie year, and he hits a ball to Meacham at second base, and it's one of those. Did he catch it before, or did it hit bounce into his glove? I mean, it's very close to being a line drive out or just a one hop into his glove. Well, Rick Reed says no catch. He has no catch. Well, Meacham, even if Rick was right, wrong, whatever, he never looked at Rick. He just started throwing it around the horn, right? So Weiss is safe, no play. And immediately, Meacham is jumping up and down and yelling at Rick. I from first base, it was one of those where whatever you got, Rick, because I didn't know one way or the other what it was. I mean, it wasn't obvious one way or the other. So you got no catch, I got no catch. So Billy from the first base dugout comes running out, and as he passes me, he goes, "You saw him catch the ball," and I said, "No, Billy, he trapped it," which I don't even know if he heard me, but. So he goes over and he's arguing with Rick, and Garcia comes up from the plate, and Garcia actually took us to the side and just he goes, it was a crew consultation before that was even in vogue, I told him the same thing. I said, Richie, I don't have a definite catch or no catch. I mean, I don't have a definite catch for sure, and I don't have a definite no. I'm doing really well. I have nothing. That's what your favorite partners say when you get together. What do you got? Not a thing. I have nothing.
That's it.
So we go with no catch and Weiss is at first. So he's arguing with Rick, and they're going, and I'm just standing minding my own business off to the side there. Of course, obviously the youngest guy on the crew. And suddenly Billy looks at me and he goes, "You saw him catch the ball." I said, "No, Billy, he trapped it." He said, "You're full of shit." And of course he personalized it. So boom, I eject him. And he went off, and he's trying to kick dirt on me. And because they had, watered it down, it was still relatively early in the game, and it was still a little damp. He couldn't get any dirt, and he's trying desperately. And one of his little kicks just nicked my knee. I mean, not intentional, but it did. And so you see me in the video. I'm pointing. "You just kicked me, Billy. You just kicked me. You kicked me, Billy." And he's saying things that we won't say on this family friendly podcast. But it wasn't real flattering. But so now Garcia's in between us, and we're going at each other and this and that, and finally Richie walks him off the field. As it turns out, that was the last time he was ejected. He was suspended for 3 days because of that incident. But going on, that game ended up going 14 innings, and the next day, I've got the plate. We're in the locker room, and in comes Tommy John. Tommy John was pitching for the Yankees, and Tommy John, just a fantastic individual, nice man. And he wasn't obviously pitching that day, and he'd usually come in once a series and say hello. And he comes in. The first thing he does when he walks in, he looks at me and goes, "Boy, you pissed Billy off yesterday." I'm like, it's not even my call, for Christ's sake. But he said that he saw this happen in the third. Tommy said he went up to the clubhouse around the middle of the fifth, and Billy had a big gulp cup of vodka and maybe a little orange juice. And he said by the seventh, I guess one of the clubhouse guys took him back to the hotel, because and the game went 14. But that was my first experience. My third year was my first experience of being in the whirlwind, of being, the headlines for a few days, and with the suspension. And then Richie Phillips and the union said that wasn't enough, so we were going to eject him every time he stepped on the field, which that caused all kinds, and of course it's the Yankees, and it caused all kinds of crap. But that was the first time that for several days I was like, I like it better when nobody even knows I'm there. I mean,
Exactly.
it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Dale, was one of the things he said, did it rhyme with duck to you?
There was a lot of duck, and I thought for a moment he was, very proud of my Oregon Duck following, but then I figured out it wasn't duck, and and he was very proud to call me that. Yeah, so that was a little bit of a moment early in my career.
Hey, any of you guys ever got fined or suspended?
Yes.
No.
Oh,
I actually when Ralph Nelson took over his first year, remember that they were talking about how the umpires were not held accountable. So I ejected Charlie Manuel in Cleveland, and for some reason or another, that particular night there was like 3 or 4 ejections, and every umpire that ejected somebody was fined. And I was fined by Ralph for actions on becoming of an umpire for ejecting Charlie Manuel. I was fined $250, even though I got the pitch right. And so I absolutely, when he called me, I was at my mom and dad's house, and I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm on my cell phone, and I said, "Well, Ralph," I said, "with all due respect, I'm going to appeal this because I did nothing wrong." He goes, "You can do whatever you want. You have the right to appeal," and stuff like that. And it just so happened that by the time my appeal was coming around, Ralph got fired. And so basically the fine went away. I don't even know if it was still in my file or not, to be honest with you, but I never paid it. The other 3 guys were all National League guys at the time, were from the National League. They all paid their fine and just ponied up. And I said, "No, I'm not doing this. I'm not paying for this."
yeah. Huh. Well, I would like to tell you about all of my fines and suspensions, but I don't know how much
This
time
is
I have.
this is only an hour-long podcast. I mean,
Oh,
Like, we need to get some humor in this. I mean, it's too serious here. Okay, guys.
well, I'll give you some humor. This is
I knew I could count on you, Dale.
well, this is what I do. Bob, like we said, when the union imploded, he had a few years before he got back into baseball, and he was in radio. Well, fast forward a few years, we're in spring training in Phoenix, and we're working. And I had heard this. It was this FM rock radio station, and the afternoon I would hear him every day after a game when I'm driving back to the hotel. The disc jockey was Craven Moorhead. Now, I'm not sure if Mr. and Mrs. Moorhead named him that, or if that was a radio name, but I cracked
All
up.
you
I mean, that was
teenagers put headphones on right now.
yeah. Craven Moorhead was, and so the next time I worked with Bob, I said, Bob, you got to tune into 97.5, whatever the hell it was. I said, "You're gonna love the disc jockey." And, "Well, why? I'm just telling you, the guy's name. I mean, it's so you, Bob." I said, "His name is Craven Moorhead." Well, Bob laughed until about the 3rd inning on that one, and so from that day forward, including up to present day, if Bob calls me or I call him, or if when we were working together, a few years, whatever, he Craven Moorhead, he would always say Craven. And so and then we had a little routine that we would do in the car and stuff to drive our partners crazy. We would do traffic and weather together on the 8s, and then Bob would what's it looking like out there, Dale? We'd just do some, well, Craven Moorhead and blah blah blah. So we go. I mean, just this whole thing. Okay, so now we go to fast forward again, and we have replay. Now, remember when we first started replay, not the first year when we'd run off the field, but then we finally had headphones, and a guy right on the field that would come onto the field, and we'd put on those big headphones and call Chelsea, New York, which was where the replay center was. And when you're on the field and you're talking to another, umpire when you call Chelsea, but you don't necessarily know who's there. I mean, who's going to be on the other end. Sometimes because they'd text you before the game, say, "Hey, I got your game," or whatever. But so and I always tried to do something when I would go to replay. Whatever city I was in, I would try to have a nice little intro. So, for example, I was in Houston once, and we had to go to replay, and I said, "Hello, Chelsea. This is Houston. We have a problem." So from the Windy City, Chelsea, we have whatever. So we're in San Francisco, and we go to replay, and I have no idea who's on the other end. And Danny, Sonia, and I go up, and I said, "From the city by the bay, Chelsea," and I hear, "Hey, Dale, it's Craven Moorhead." So, I don't. we see this afterwards. The camera's right on us. He says, I start laughing. I mean, I so did not expect that, obviously. And it was hilarious. And so, we're supposed to have our serious game face on, we're going to replay. This serious shit, right? And I hear this and I go, so I'm sitting there laughing like, and Bob, we figured it out and everything. But Bob, tell him what the people in the replay center thought because they didn't see that coming either.
No, well, everybody was laughing because you were laughing, Dale. And I want to say Justin Clem was in charge that night, and it was just funny. And I think I don't know if I can't remember if I had to overturn the call or not, but
right. From that point forward, I don't know what happened because I was just laughing.
Yeah, but it was you laughing made the whole thing awesome. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I got news for you guys. Craven Moorhead is on KUPD in Phoenix. He's still there. So maybe we should call a request line or something like that.
You should get him on the podcast.
You know what? I never thought.
No.
Hey, Bob.
We could go 2 podcasts with just Craven Moorhead, and all the idiosyncrasies.
I'm going to be on the grand jury at that time.
Listen, 2 podcasts. The first podcast is Craven. The other one's Moorhead.
There you go.
But you need 2 cup of coffee for that show, Jimmy. Maybe 3.
Absolutely.
You should call
that's just wrong.
You should call the station, Bob, and see if we can get him on the air.
Wow.
Oh, if I can get him on the air, Bob, you're coming back because come on. This is
Bob. You have a shrine, like Raven Moorhead shrine in your room. I mean, for crying out loud.
I did. When you guys first mentioned that, it didn't click, and then okay. See, I'm 65, so sometimes it's a little slow getting in, but once it gets in, it's good, right, Dale?
Well, what'd you say?
Well, come on, Bob's older than all of us. Jimmy's right there, and then you're the baby of the group here, Dale. So
Well, that doesn't reflect well on any of us.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to bring up something also. I said because Bob has a grandson that he affectionately calls the Hurricane, and we talk a lot about my newest granddaughter Parker and the Hurricane. We talk about him quite a bit, and Bob just makes me laugh all the time when he talks about the Hurricane. So what's the Hurricane been up to lately?
Well, the Hurricane, my grandson, he was going to be 3 on Thanksgiving Day. His name is Harvey, and it's my youngest daughter Andrea's son. And Harvey,
I'll be right back.
Oh, where are you going? Oh,
bathroom.
He's got to pee.
I mean, he needs to go see a doctor about that. Anyway,
it's that age, dude. We know it's
Harvey and my wife, Harvey and his grandma, calls her Mimi. I mean, they are just they're fun to watch together because he follows Denise around like he's got a leash. And it's pretty cute. We get to watch him 2 days a week when Andrea has to work. She works in a dentist office here in Denver. And so we get to have him Thursday and Friday.
He's a cute little shit. You see, Bob sends me videos of Harvey and stuff like that. I send him videos of Parker and stuff. And
yeah,
I'll tell you what, we've gotten to that age where grandkids are pretty much our lives. And
I wish we would have had grandkids before our kids. I think that would have been awesome.
Well, the funny thing is, my nephew Evan, who is graduating from Sacramento State in January, and he's already got his broadcasting gig for the Palm Springs, whoever it is, for the Winter League. And when he was little, he would follow me everywhere. I mean, as soon as he could walk, he would follow me everywhere. We've been tight ever since, and it's a joy. Noreen and I never had kids, but he's the kid I never had, and we're tight to this day. And it's a joy to see them grow up. I mean, when they're little kids, and all of a sudden he's 21 and he's graduating college, you go, where the hell did the time go?
Right.
This little kid, and it's like your grandkids. Pretty soon they're going to be going to school, and all the stuff that kids do. You're going to be part of it, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my other two grandkids, my Jimmy, my son's daughter and son are growing like weeds too. And but Parker's, this is our newest one, so we get to see her quite a bit and stuff. So it's really, you're right. And time goes by way too fast. So
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
yes, it's unbelievable. So
Yeah.
I mean, we all had more hair back in the day,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
I bought mine. I
I
paid for
bought
mine.
mine.
Because of you, I got a little
Yeah.
tune up myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys save your receipts?
I expensed it with Kathy.
By
Yeah,
the
she
way,
told me about that, Dale.
hey, I thought you guys did a great job with Kathy Davis in your last podcast.
It was great. It gave an insight to, because people don't understand what goes on with umpires. They just know that they hate you guys when you're on the field. They don't understand all the crap that goes on and trying to get you guys from point A to point B in 12 hours, when your plane is late and it's pouring down rain. What she did was just short of a miracle, and it was a great conversation.
Well,
Not just a second.
you got to understand too that it literally is hurting cats. I mean the
Now he's back.
umpires, very very strong personalities and very different personalities, and they're all in one room. And we have our annual meeting, whatever. It is certainly like hurting cats. There's no doubt about it.
Proverbially, it's amazing, and really that podcast with Kathy, there's so much more. It really.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We just scraped the top, actually.
That's why we're going to have her back on, because she was easy to talk to. She gets it, and she's pretty open about things. You can ask her just about anything, and she's just like you guys, she's forward and honest about everything, and that's great.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Bob, you've got the Balking Bob that we talked about. When you worked with Danny and I, and for quite a bit the last few years that I was around. Yeah, I used to also call you No Filter Bob, because there was.
Well, Denise is listening. She does not want me to use foul language, but Dale, you have said shit 3 times on this podcast.
Well, the over under is 5, so we're
Well, I think one of them dropped an F-bomb a few podcasts ago. I don't know whether it was Dale or Jimmy, but I think it was Dale.
It's Dale.
Dale. Blame Dale.
I thought this 7-second delay worked. No,
No, it doesn't work.
No, and don't worry, I'm not going to erase this podcast, Dale. This will be in the can, so don't worry about this one.
Bob was hilarious though, because he would No Filter Bob would just random time, wherever, airport, restaurant, on the field, in the locker room. One time we'd come back from a game, the 4 of us were in the elevator from the lobby going up. We're all at different floors, and Bob's was the first floor to stop. Well, as we're going up, Bob out of nowhere said, "Dale, if I was on your team, would you do me?" And his
Here
floor
we go. There
comes,
goes the ratings.
and the elevator opens up, and he walks out. And as it's shutting, I go, "Bob, if you were on my team, I'd switch teams." And
That's great.
Oh man, is this taking a
Every
turn?
podcast here, guys. This is great.
Oh,
I mean, we laughed.
Yeah.
Bobby, that's why I do this podcast, because it's fun, and you can hear stuff that normal people, they don't know what's going on. When you guys are on the field laughing, they have no idea what's going on, and you guys are bringing everybody into that, and this is going places. This is fun,
One of my last things about Bob. We were working together in Washington D.C. when we opened D.C. when D.C. came back into the league
From Montreal.
From Montreal, and we actually had President Bush come in. He was there to throw out the first pitch and everything. So he ends up showing up in our locker room. and I have video of it, and I've got still pictures of it. But all of a sudden, we're standing there, and President Bush he was signing baseballs at the time, and all of a sudden, Bob's phone rings, and Bob answers it. I don't know which daughter it was, Andrea. Amber.
Andrea. Yeah.
Andrea had called Bob in the locker room, and Bob goes, Andrea, I can't talk to you right now. I'm talking with the President of the United States. And you don't hear anything. And all of a sudden, Bob goes, no, he's the Republican. And President Bush goes, who are you talking to? And he says, I'm talking to my daughter, Andrea. He goes, let me talk to Andrea. So he grabs the phone from Bob. And he says, hello, Andrea. This is President Bush. Always listen to your mother. hands the phone back to Bob.
Well, No Filter Bob, we worked the All-Star game together in 1993 in Baltimore.
That's right. Yeah.
And our locker room in Baltimore there is right behind the plate. You go right directly behind the plate. There's the little door thing. You go to this runway, boom, and it's right there. So the game's over. And we all are in our room, and we're all shaking hands. We worked the game, everything went well, and we barely were in the room. And there's a knock, and a guy opens, and he goes, "Excuse me, it's Secret Service. Do you mind if the Vice President uses your facility?" Vice President Gore, who we knew he was there. He was sitting with his son up, like in the front row over on the side. Anyway, we said, "Absolutely." So in walks Vice President Gore, and he shakes all our hand. We say hello and stuff, and you go through the locker room, and then you go around this little corner back to the facilities. So as he's after he shakes all our hand, he's starting to go back there. He just goes around the corner, and Bob goes, "Mr. Vice President, are you doing a number 1 or number 2?" And now, this is what I mean about no filter, and so we're all going, ooh, like, oh my God. And the Vice President, Mr. Gore, his head comes around the corner. And he goes, "I can't tell you, national security." which was, broke the place up. The greatest answer. And then he got done, and he sat with us for maybe 10 minutes, and we were asking him questions. He was talking. He was just, how Gore was so stiff in front of a camera, and just so, the Macarena, and all that. It was just, when he was off camera, like there, he was funny, witty, he was personable, relaxed. And I was thinking, as a fine Democrat that I am, I was thinking, why can't you portray this when red light's on, because it would be so, people could relate to it. But that was our No Filter Bob asking the Vice President what he was going to do in that room. So this is the true Bob.
Yeah.
Bob, you remember that?
Oh, I do. And I was going to tell you about another time when I got fined and suspended by Joe Torre. We had a Sunday day game in Detroit off Monday, Tuesday night in Boston. So I flew home from Detroit to Denver. And I remember Denise and I our grandson at the time was just learning to ride a bike. And anyway, we did that for a couple hours. And it was a good day off. And then I get to the airport Tuesday morning in Denver, and it's a mechanical. And anyway, I ended up missing the game. So I land in Boston. The game is almost over. And Joe Torre calls me and said, you're going to work these next 2 games in Baltimore or Boston. You're going to work these 2 games in Boston. You're going to work the play tomorrow. And then after these 2 games, you're suspended for 3 days. And I'm going to fine you $750. And he said, the reason you're getting fined is you flew backwards. I said, Joe, I didn't fly backwards. I was sitting forwards.
Now it's $1,000.
And he he gave me an FU, and he said, $750. I want that check in a couple days, and click. He hung up the phone. Yeah. So that was one of my suspensions for, I should have charged United Airlines for that, but
exactly. That's your like that was your fault. That always amazed me.
Yeah.
And an umpire's worst fear at an airport is hearing mechanical.
Oh yeah.
When you hear mechanical, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
we're up on it. This has just flown by.
Yes,
Bob,
it has.
you were great. You know, everybody has a misconception about Balking Bob. Everybody has a misconception about Jim Joyce and Dale Scott. These guys are funny. They're they have the stories, and that's what we're trying to bring out. You know, these guys are human beings. They're not robots. They, you know, they like to laugh like the rest of us, and in the stories they tell, you just have to shake your head like
These are the only
asking
ones that we
Al
can
Gore
tell.
was
Actually.
number one or number two. That was classic.
I mean, I mean,
Classic.
by the way, just a little sidebar here. I just mentioned earlier that we officially signed off, and then we bought a new place and all that, and it's all official. The Fed just lowered the rates a half point today. So
After you signed?
oh, my timing is fantastic on these loans.
Wow. You know, I know we're up against it real quick. One of the funniest guys I ever worked with was Eric Gregg. When he had the bases, I mean, he was just, you know, just like Bozo the Clown. On plate day, oh, I mean, it was like church. He was a church mouse. It was really comical how, you know, he really
Change a different routine.
Yeah, he just changed his attitude on time when it was his plate time.
I remember they used to talk about some of the guys out there that in the American League, at least, there was, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they said the same thing. On the bases, he was jovial, he was funny, had a great time. But when the plate day came up, he'd drink a half a bottle of Pepto-Bismol. And, you know, I never got like that. I always was aware and everything like that because we all took our job serious, but I never got all jarred up. You know, it's,
I never
you
did
know,
like Pepto-Bismol and stuff. I usually
no.
Crown Royal.
Yeah, exactly.
After.
You know, just like you were saying, when you saw, you know, Jack Morris, mine was always Roger Clemens. When I was coming up and down, it seemed like whenever I came up, it was always in Boston, and I had Roger Clemens. But yeah, after the second or third time, I said, oh, you know, it's just another day. So
yeah. I mean, going in, certain guys that are tough to work.
Yep.
Not necessarily tough to work because a lot of times they threw well, but it's just they're tough to work because they don't accept balls called, basically.
John Hirschbeck used to say to me, he actually was off one time and he came into Cleveland. I was working the plate, and he says to the crew, he says, watch this. He says, Jimmy, who's working the plate? I said, I have no clue. That's how I handled it. I never would sit there and look at the newspaper and see who was pitching that day or anything like that, because I was going to find out in a half an hour anyway. So
I was more worried about the catch. I always wanted, you know, because
exactly.
to me, I thought the best catcher I ever worked behind was Mike LaValliere, because
I remember him.
He was small. He played with Pittsburgh and St. Louis. He was a small guy, short, squatty, and really a super guy. Didn't say anything. And you could see the ball so well. I mean,
Yeah,
he was my favorite.
I remember him.
Yeah. So,
well, guys, this has been great. Bob, you're absolutely you're coming back. We've just scratched the surface, everybody. Want to thank Bob Davidson for coming on. Balking Bob, you were great. I think Jimmy and Dale had a good time. There we go. And that's why we do this. We want people to know that umpires are human beings and they're hilarious. If you can just hear the stories, you're going to laugh and enjoy the show.
hey,
So,
Bob, when's my check coming?
talk to Dale.
Right after we get ours.
We have to see the ratings first.
Yes.
Talk to Dale. He's still got to get Jocko his check in Minneapolis. So, you know.
Well, I know when you have Timmy Cheetah and Jeff Nelson on, they're going to be those would be good shows, because those guys have great personalities and really funny guys, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, we need, next time you come on, we need you to loosen up a little bit, okay? You're too stiff. And I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
My wife
No
made me
filter, Bob.
My wife made me shower and shave before I came on.
Well, you need to do that once a month, whether you like it or not.
Everybody, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We've got another one coming up. We've got more umpires coming up, more great stories. And remember, always take the road to the left, because you never know what you'll find. And we will see you next time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bob.